Okay, so our next session, guys, we're almost there. I know we're in between us and alcohol, so we're gonna get through the next two sessions very quickly. But the next session is actually gonna be a bit of a rapid fire, and to join me will be Dr. Sam Spiegel and Dr. Jane Chan. Okay, welcome. So can you both just introduce yourselves? What institutions are you from, your specialty, etc.?
Hi, everybody. Hello. Hi, everybody. My name is Sam Spiegel. I am a neuro-ophthalmologist, already getting called off stage. And I am at UC Irvine right now.
Yes, hello, everyone. My name is Jane Chan. I'm also a neuro-ophthalmologist. I work at Doheny Eye Center at UCLA.
Okay, so our segment is going to be about clinical trials. So raise your hand if you've ever been part of a clinical trial before. Anybody? One person, and it's Michael? Okay, so then we have a lot to talk about. Sam, Dr. Spiegel, can you tell us in layperson's terms, what is a clinical trial?
It's kind of a tough question because there's such a broad range of clinical trials, right? So there's clinical trial is something that you can choose to enroll in as a patient that provides us information as clinicians, whether it's information gathering, just enrolling so that we can get the data long term, that all you have to do is come to your doctor's appointments so that we can collect that. Or on the other range of that spectrum is a clinical trial where you get a specific drug that can help us gather information on if that drug is effective or not.
Dr. Chan, can you speak to any current clinical trials going on right now for MOGAD and MOSD? What clinical trials are available and open right now?
From what I know from the NIH ClinGov website, there is the satralizumab trial that's going on. It's phase 3, and it's either an add-on to your existing baseline therapy or as monotherapy. I'm not aware of any clinical sites in Southern California for that particular trial. There is another one ongoing now at Stanford with a drug that's called Razi. We can't pronounce it either. And so that's for MOGAD. There's also some, not really trials, they're listed as trials, but they're actually clinical database type of studies where you just volunteer to enter your medical information. So they collect data about MOG, all your medical symptoms, signs, CSF, serum, imaging data. It's just a clinical database just to study the natural history of the disease. So there's no requirement for trying any kind of therapy. So that's another option if you don't want to try experimental, so to speak, therapy. But that is really important just to give information on rare diseases that are hard to study.
Dr. Spiegel, how do patients find out about clinical trials?
Good question. So for the sake, I think somebody said before people only retain 30%. I'll break it down to 3 things, right? So at least why, where, and how. Number 3, we'll start with how. How is, 1, self-advocacy a little bit. It's tough, right? There's not that many clinical trials that are going on for these diseases because they are rare diseases. So either finding a physician or doing research online, clinicaltrials.gov, through the NIH, to find ones that are enrolling in your area or in your state. Once you find that, there might not be one, right? In Southern California, there's not a lot of options for MOG. There's one clinical trial right now. It's at Stanford. So how do you then go about doing that? is working with your doctors, getting a team of doctors that that support you or are involved. There's a small community of doctors, so we all know each other for good reasons too. I have patients that I know that I want enrolled in that clinical trial at Stanford, and I'm down at UC Irvine, so I texted the people who trained me at Stanford, and I said, hey, can we get this patient enrolled in this trial? I know there are actually 2 more coming up, hopefully this summer, opening at Stanford, and we communicate so that we can get them enrolled in the current clinical trial at Stanford. We'll fly people up for the first 4 sessions to start their infusions and then continue back at home in Irvine. So it's a self-advocacy on your part, and then working to find a group or a doctor who knows a doctor through talking through other patients and using resources online like this foundation to find what's out there.
Okay. Dr. Chan, eligible patients who are enrolled in clinical trials, do they receive the treatment and the care for free?
Yes, they do.
That's great.
Yes.
Who doesn't love free?
Yes, that's one of the advantages. If you enroll in a clinical trial, oftentimes the patient care is very detailed, and you're closely monitored for any side effects or any kind of symptom or sign from your disease. And every little thing gets tracked. And I'm almost, I like to say that you might get even better care from a clinical trial than your regular neurologist. Because really some of the testing and some of the procedures are really outside of conventional medical care. For example, if you had an episode of optic neuritis and you lost your vision, the conventional medical care is to give you IV Solomedrol, high dose, to help you recover your vision. Whereas if you went to a tertiary care center who's doing a study like Ronald Reagan with the Mayo Clinic with Dr. John Chan, you wouldn't just get Solomedrol IV, you would get plasmapheresis, because that's a study protocol that's not offered at other routine hospitals in the community. And it's not, and that's not an experimental drug either. The plasmapheresis is a known drug, but having that open mind to try new things, you may get a better outcome. Certainly, volunteering for clinical trials, the pros and cons are, if you volunteer for a phase 3 study, obviously the safety and efficacy of the drug is already studied in phase 1 and 2. So most of the side effects are known, and it's considered safe to enter into clinical trials. But the disadvantage is that you can have some side effects. Yet you're able to try a new therapy and feel more in control of your disease, especially with a rare disease like MOGAD, where there isn't any FDA-approved drug and no real treatment. It really gives some glitter of hope, so that you feel like you're doing at least something, not just for yourself, but in an altruistic way. And that's another advantage. You're giving back to some of the patients who have the same thing you do, and it really has a good feeling that you're contributing to healthcare in that way. The other thing is, it might be inconvenient. There may be many office visits. There may be many procedures to do, imaging and blood tests. That's something to consider too, but especially travel. For this Stanford clinical trial, the travel for Southern California patients is quite a trip, yet your travel expenses are covered. So those are some things to consider. And the people who put together these clinical trials, we know that it's not located in an area where you might find it convenient. So we do reimburse you for your time and effort because it's very important. As physicians, we like to give the best therapy to our patients. We like to give the best care, and we really have the hope that you have a close to normal life despite this disease. And just like the previous session, this disease doesn't identify you.
Thank you.
I have two things to add to that. It may be inconvenient, but we're trying to work to make it more convenient for everyone too. I know that Dr. Ameskova at USC, and actually last week was the first week for us at UCI, are doing joint neuroimmunology and neuro-ophthalmology clinics to make these visits easier for patients and to get sites that are local in Southern California to start helping patients and start doing clinical trials so that we can bring this closer to our patients as well. And then going off of the why is the self-empowering patients, right? Self-empowering you to feel like you are not only making a difference in your life, but in other people's lives. Last night, I saw a patient in the emergency room with bilateral optic neuritis and had probably MOGAD disease. We'll find out in the next few days. But that first discussion that I had with her last night, was a very different discussion than it would have been a few years ago. And the reassurance that I could provide her felt good for me personally, and I hope, as scary as it was for her at that time, also provided her the reassurance that she needed, that she was in the right place getting the right care, because we have this information now that we didn't have before.
That's fantastic. And my final question is actually the perfect segue into our next segment. For the both of you, actually, can you share why is diversity so critical in clinical trials?
Because our patients are diverse, and because not one thing applies to everybody. And that has been a big issue with clinical trials in the past, and we want to make sure that our information is appropriate and is applicable, broadly applicable to everyone who has this disease. So, very important for us.
Yes, I certainly agree. And to that idea of personalized medicine, we now are doing more genome-wide assessments in terms of particular genes, not genes just for a disease, but other genes that might interact with those disease genes that can make something worse and make something better. So those risk alleles that we're looking for. And also, diversity is important too, because disease comes out in different ways in different people. On a personal level, individually, but also, ethnically, and also in terms of geographic areas. Environmental issues can affect disease outcomes and affects the course of the disease in different ways, such as air pollution or, toxins. Many modifying factors in disease. So not all NMO and not all MOGAD is the same. I've learned that, seeing a lot of patients with optic neuritis, just optic neuritis alone is vastly different in different people.
Okay, so in summary, being part of clinical trials is altruistic. It's a way for us to contribute to science and be part of something that's bigger than ourselves. And you would get really high quality care, which is it's icing on the cake. And of course, diversity is very important. And I hope that as a community and with all the stakeholders involved, we do more and more to make clinical trials accessible, especially for this community. So I hope that things become available in other languages, that maybe we make our clinical trial sites decentralized, and all of the above that we will talk about in our diversity segment. Thank you, Dr. Spiegel. Thank you, Dr. Chan, for this rapid fire. Please give them a round of applause.
Thank you all for having us.
Thank you.